Before I start today's discussion, again, today's discussion about investigation best practices, and it has 4 segments. First segment that we will discuss today about investigating theft act. Tomorrow's session will be investigating concealment. And the next 2 days will be investigation on conversion and inquiry method, like interview method. These 3 segments we'd already talked about in the introduction to forensic fraud examination. It's about, for any fraud to happen, we need to have a theft. There has to be opportunity to conceal, and then it has to be converted so that the perpetrator can benefit from the theft act. So, and all these 3 acts needs to be investigated in a certain way, and we will discuss that. Before I start, I want to know, just put your, use your chat window and send message about, do you have any experience in investigation? Just, if you have it, just say yes. So I want to know how many people have that experience. Okay, so most of you don't have any, only one person has investigation experience. Good, okay. And, okay, 2 people I have. Got it. Good, so it's not bad. We have some people who have the investigation experience. What we will discuss today is very fundamentals of investigation in the next 4 days. As you get experience, of course, you will develop your own techniques. But what we will discuss here today is usually what is recommended based on collective experience, based on research and everything. Again, when you do investigation, you're dealing with human behavior. So there's no really hard and fast rule of thumb. Anyway, we'll start today then. Today's segment will be investigation of theft act. I will not waste our time on discussing about my background. What we'll discuss today is theft investigation methods and how they are used to investigate suspected fraud, understand how to coordinate an investigation using vulnerability chart. There are many tools available, remember that. What we will just discuss one particular tool. Describe the nature of surveillance and covert operation, understand the effectiveness of invigilation to investigate fraud. Explain how to obtain physical evidence and how it can be used in a fraud investigation. Understand how to seize and analyze electronic information from cell phones, hard drive, emails, and other sources. Use trash and other social engineering method to investigate fraud. Fraud investigation, I will tell you, is not always a clean job, okay? You have to be ready to get dirty. I mean, physically dirty. There are moments you have to jump into a dumpster and get the document that you need. Trash, going through the trash is one of the things that we have to do also. It's not like audit where you go meet people and have a decent conversation and get your document and write your report. It's not like that. Fraud investigation is much more intensive, much more invasive, and we have to be aware of many things that happens around us. The smell, the touch, the feel, the conversation that goes on, the tension in the conversation, everything is considered in the fraud investigation. Anyway, we'll start. Like, when do you investigate a fraud. Okay, so we talked about in the past discussion that you have to have a strong predication. That is, all the information that you have, they're considered in taken together. You suspect that their fraud has happened. There has to be a strong predication. Without that, we should not proceed with fraud investigation. Also, do we investigate every report that comes in? We have to also pay attention to the cost of the investigation, the resource that is involved in investigation. If the cost of the investigation is more than the benefit, then you need to step back. Now, the benefit could be in terms of company ethics. Benefit could be in terms of financial involvement. So it's not always the financial cost we're looking at. Sometimes the financial cost may not be higher, but the implication of it may be major damage to the organization. So in those cases, we have to consider everything. As a whole, when we proceed with our fraud investigation, is it going to be beneficial for the organization? Exposure or amount that could have been taken. This is another thing. We need to know if the fraud is involved, how much money amount is involved, how much is exposure. Exposure and amount, there could be different. Amount taken is one thing right away that you saw, but there may be more at risk. That is the exposure. The signal that investigation or non-investigation will send to others in the organization, okay? That's what I was telling you. It's not always the money that matters. It's also, what if we don't do the investigation, we don't take the investigation, what will be the impact on in the organization, others in the organization, other employees, they know it happened, they know it got reported somehow, and they will be watching to see what you do. If you don't take any action and it has a major moral issue, then the whole organization will lose trust in the system, and it will be more exposed to fraud and other activities. When should you investigate fraud? Risk of investigation and not investigating. So this one thing you need to consider. As I'm telling you again and again and again, I think next 4 days I will be emphasizing on that one a lot. Public exposure or loss of reputation from investigating and or not investigating. Sometimes this is a critical one, especially in the financial statement fraud that I have seen, because they knew that if the information got out, it will seriously damage the company's reputation. And the top management was, I have seen scenarios where they were like sitting on the information, they did not know what to do. Okay. And at the one point they had to disclose it, but of course, you can't really stop the outcome. They just delayed the outcome. In fact, that even caused more damage to the organization. If they disclosed it immediately, they could have reduced the exposure. They might have lost some money, but not what happened after they disclosed it 2 years later. In countries like United States, they have strict regulation. If you come across major fraud that is material and it's a listed company, even the auditor has a responsibility to report it to the SEC. And sometimes what the auditor will do, if they find it, they will resign. In fact, when they resign from the audit, that is also results in automatic report to the SEC, and there will be an investigation from them. Okay, so there are many ways to achieve the same objective, but you have to know the laws and regulation of your country. And the nature of the possible fraud, what nature, what happened? Okay, is it a one-off? Is it something that is happening for a long time? Or is it that going to expose the company for future loss in the, that all we need to consider before we decide to investigate. Okay, again, the predication. Before you launch any investigation, we need to know who did it, how they did it, how much. Now, before you start investigation, I am talking about, that means you don't still have all the information in, but we have some information in. So to establish a predication, I usually prepare a investigation plan in writing, where I write down all my thoughts. What was a fraud about? What amount I think is exposed? Who did it? Who could have done it? Now, there's another thing. Like if I am the one committing fraud, now the possible suspects will be who I'm reporting to and who is working under me. Okay, or who I have to deal with to commit the fraud. So these are the things you have to, sometimes you have to take the organization chart and map it out. Okay, and how much, the most important, how much I have stolen, for how long. Okay, if I got caught for $10,000 and I've been doing it for, I've been in the organization for 20 years, you need to consider, am I doing it for the last 20 years? So what will be the impact of it? So these are the questions that we need to have answers. Excuse me. For
even excuse me, Mangasin, even if there is financial impact is low. For example, if SIMs are lost in a mobile company and they are activated fraudulently, it could be a, it could in maybe in future it could be a reputation loss for the company. Some bad people might use it. So
exactly,
depending upon the nature of the fraud, also it depends.
Yeah, that predication has to exist. I told you that it's not always about the financial amount. It's all about also about the reputation and the organization and everything. All needs to be considered as a whole for a fraud investigation to proceed. Now, when we do fraud investigation, we need to realize that I prefer to create a written investigation plan that so I don't miss any point. All my thoughts are written down, why I'm doing it, what are the things I have collected. Before you start investigation, you also, again, you have to know who are the targeted people. These are suspects, remember. And that you have to develop from your experience. I usually take the organization chart and flow it out and then look at it, who are the people should be involved if that particular act has to happen. And that particular fraud has to happen. Who are the people needs to be authorizing this transaction? Then all will be in my suspect list. Okay. Then one thing a lot of time we miss a very simple thing, going to their personnel file. Employee's personnel file is a very good source of information. You need to get information about the employee, when they started in the company, what was the position, was there any disciplinary action against them in the past, was there any notification of about any violation in the past, any involvement, any investigation report. It has a lot of information about the employee in the employee file. So it's a very good source of information that we need to consider. Interview the former employees, unsuccessful vendors, and get information from. They can be very good source of information, especially former employees. They have nothing to lose. They will tell you a lot of information about the organization and the people. A lot of organizations, they do have an exit interview process. Exit interview is not always a very good source because a lot of time the employee is leaving the company. They don't want to say anything negative because you don't know when he's going to come back to you, but it can be a good source of information. Then search public records, observation, surveillance, invigilation, and gather information through that. Interview other buyers. These are in case of tendering and co-workers. Remember, before you start interviewing the suspect, you need to gather enough information so that you know about the situation better than anybody. So you need to do a lot of due diligence work, a lot of review, a lot of document collection, document review. It takes time before you hit the suspect. I usually tell my suspect that by the time I talk to them, I know what they have done. I know the answer that should be coming from them. So if I don't get that, so they know they're in trouble. Okay, but to do that, you need to do quite a bit of digging. It's very important that we do the groundwork. We don't just jump into interviewing people. Okay. We should not jump into interviewing people. We need to do enough groundwork, enough gathering of information, documents, meeting with other people. The prime suspect, here's a question for you. When do you interview the prime suspect? There are a lot of suspects, a lot of subject. I would not say suspect always, the subjects. Okay. But one of them, you know, is the prime one. So in order of when you're going to interview the prime suspect, is it going to be the first guy to be interviewed or the last guy to be interviewed? Anybody can answer?
I think it should be somewhere in the middle. First, we should gather all the information or the access control records, and then we have to do interview with the other people surrounding him, gather more information. Because if we interview the prime suspect initially, maybe he will influence other people. So they not give the correct.
Yes. Best practice is, you're right. Best practice is,
and
yeah, best practice is,
then,
I think Amir, Mr. Amir, your I think internet is a little low. Anyway, the best practice is you're right. The prime suspect should be the last one. Okay. Prime suspect should be the last one. So you should almost create a circle like this. Who are the first round of interview, second round of interview, third round of interview, and the final interview. So because you're going to gather information about from these additional people that you will use on the prime suspect. So prime suspect, you want to interview the last one. And one funny human behavior is the one who has committed fraud, he knows that he's going to be, he's at fault, right?
Yeah.
And he will expect you to talk to him first.
Yes,
and
so
when
that
that is not going to
he
happen,
can get an input from us so that he can plan everything.
He expects you to interview him first. But when you are not doing that, that creates a lot of pressure on him. He will be wondering why they are not coming to me. And one funny thing happened in my life also. That I was doing the same thing. I was basically closing the news on the suspect. And I was talking to everybody. I was completely ignoring the main suspect. Okay. And one fine morning, I got a call from his manager that he wants to come with the manager. I said, no, when I have to talk to you, I'll talk to you. Don't worry about it. You know. Finally, he went to my boss and basically disclosed everything he has done. Okay, he could not take it anymore. And we were able to basically almost like, I think in that investigation, we fired close to 25 people from a department. And so it is one of the outcome of because those who have committed fraud, they know they have done it, and they want to talk to you. They want to feel, in fact, that when they talk, they feel a little better. The tension is too much on them sometimes, and that is the reason. Sometimes not. That is the reason we always need to interview them at the end. By the time we have enough information, it will be easy to conduct that interview.
But it depends also. Sometimes the suspect is like that he might run away by that time. So there is a, we have to
Yeah,
see
that
that
we
risk
have
as,
to remember. You're talking about those precautionary measures we have to take.
yeah.
Okay. In my case, usually when I go to HR asking for the files, we have to take the precaution and measures to make sure that the guy is not going anywhere. Vacation is not accepted. And if he's on vacation is approved, we have to take care of that it is put it on hold. In other countries, there's some countries you need exit permit. Some countries you have to inform the immigration authority so that they cannot escape the country. So those steps you have to take. Okay, that's part of the preparation. Once you have the planning done, audit, the investigation plan done, some of these are the action that you need to note down. Okay, and HR
But
also need to know that once.
sometimes the suspect is a senior person, you cannot stop him from going also.
This
Like,
is a different issue that we discussed the other day. You know,
yeah,
senior or not senior. In fact, senior people should be dealt at much serious level. If a senior person
yeah.
is involved, of course, that needs to be, the department has to have the authority to take those actions. We should not differentiate between senior and junior people. It's not about senior and junior. It's about somebody has committed fraud, what are the action required, and we should be able to implement it without any bias. That's the right way to do it, but I understand what you're talking about. Okay. In most of the organization I have worked, yeah, some organization have that tendency, but other organization, we were able to overcome that. Method that directly investigate the fraud act. One is surveillance and covert operation. That is, you observe employees in their action, or you disguise and send someone else to work with them and get information. Invigilation, obtaining physical evidence, gathering electronic evidence. Okay. One second. Gathering electronic evidence. I will talk about one by one all these items. When beginning a fraud investigation, it is often useful to develop theories. How many of you develop theories before you go into a fraud investigation? Hypothesis. Before you start an investigation, you have to have a theory. Who did it, how they did it, why they did it. Okay. In criminal case, they call it motives. Okay. Usually I write it down in my investigation plan. Okay, why they did it, how they did it. You need to have some theory. You need to know who are the suspect. As I told you, take the organization chart and put it, place it on your table and decide if this action is to happen, this fraud has to happen, who are the people in the approval process. And these all are your suspects. And you have to have a theory why he did it, how he did it. And then you prove that the theory is right or wrong. One way to develop such theory is to create a vulnerability chart. Vulnerability chart, we'll talk about now. So it's a very simple thing. It's a table where you have taken, basically write down what happened, who had the opportunity to commit it, how the assets were moved, how the theft was concealed, how are assets converted, what were the red flags, what are the pressures, rationalization, and key internal control issues. This is just an example, okay? It's not that you have to do the same thing all the time. Based on your experience, based on your organization, you may create different ways to do it. In my case, I do it in a memo format. I write down all my thoughts in a bullet format. This is one way it is recommended also. But what it does, it makes your case clear. If the computer was stolen, then where was it stolen from? If it is stolen from the teller area, so the teller operation and proof operator, they were involved. If the goods are stolen, good delivered, so who had the opportunity? The receiving trucker, the one who received the goods has the opportunity. Now, how the asset could have been moved? One is he did not receive the good, or he received it and then moved it in the truck to some other place. And what time it has happened? It could have happened at night time, okay, or that he moved it with the trash. That we have seen in my case, that what the employees were doing, they were throwing good parts into the trash as scrap right before the day when the scrap will be sold as scrap. Before the scrap sale, the night before that, they will throw good items into the scrap yard, and then the scrap is sold as scrap. The guy who wins the bid will come and pick up the whole scrap, and they will take it to their warehouse, and then they split the good one from the bad one. I have seen that happening in my experience. Sometimes what they do also, they throw the item near the fence. The fence is not a wall; it's like the barbed wire, so they can go and collect it from there. So we have to really see who had the opportunity and how they did it, and then how it is converted. Okay, concealed is one thing. So throwing a part in the scrap and hide it is the concealment part. Now you have to convert it. Conversion happens when the scrap buyer, he's also involved in this case. They take the item, take it to their warehouse, and then they split the cost. And they pay them the guy for each of the new parts. Okay. What are the red flags? That nobody was making sure that anything that is thrown in the scrap yard is really scrap or not. There was no camera, for example, CCTV camera to detect what was being done. It is done in the middle of the night probably. Okay. Good enough, before the scrap is delivered, nobody is inspecting the scrap. They say, oh, okay, here is the scrap yard, go and pick it up from there. The pressure, of course, you know, they want to get extra money. Sometimes they want to get a new car, new lifestyle. Past for promotion, that is another very common thing we have noticed. People are in the same position, in the same location for year after year after year. No promotion, no incentive, nothing. That gave them the opportunity, that gave them the reason to steal, because nobody was watching. Also, the location was a remote location. Job rotation was not there. And the key internal control check, receiving report, in this case, the scrap case, I would say the inspection of the scrap by the authorities. There were procedure where at least 3 people should be in during the delivery time, like the finance and the HR and the admin. But they were all too lazy to do that, or they were involved. Some of them were involved. So they did not really bother about checking the scrap. But this type of chart, this type of thought process, if not necessarily, it doesn't have to be in a chart format, but your thought needs to be written down. When you do that, picture will be much more clearer. Again, I will emphasize organization chart, understanding of the business process, understanding of the location. Do not try to investigate without without visiting the location, especially if it is happening in a store or warehouse. Don't try to investigate sitting in the office. It's very dangerous. I have seen many cases where there was restriction going on the field, and some of the assumptions that they made were completely wrong when I was able to trace it through independent other guys. Somebody was going to the field. I told them to go and check these items, and the information I got back was completely wrong. So be careful. Do not, in investigating any fact, any investigation, we need to have a very good understanding of the company and the organization, its culture, the process, the location. When I used to work in this automotive company, more or less, I have visited all their facilities. So when somebody mentioned that, okay, theft happened in that particular location, I could visualize in my mind what happened, where was the location, who are the people. So when I send my team, I tell them that go there, do this, look at this area, and gather information. And most of the time, that was very valuable for the team. Of course, team, once they go on the field, they will find more information. Sometimes what I saw 1 year back might have changed. But it is very important that we understand the process, the business, and the people. Any question? Okay. Another technique is surveillance and covert operation. Covert operation is basically you place somebody in disguise to observe the activity and be part of it and gather information. Surveillance, you watch it from outside and see what is happening in the function. Okay. So you rely on senses, especially hearing and seeing. In surveillance, you see and hear. That's what is your basically information. So make sure that whoever doing surveillance is honest, not biased or involved in this activity. Now, the three types of surveillance. One is the stationary or fixed point that records events occurring at the scene. Log includes time, place, and event. Moving on trailing, that is you follow somebody in action, so wherever they goes. In one case, we did not do it. One of the employees followed another employee to the market and back to the company, so we know what they have done. And this type of thing should not be done by anybody. You need to have experience. Don't just tail people. Don't just go into surveillance. You need to be trained. You need to have experience. You need to have proper people. Also, you have to consider the laws and regulation of the country. Certain countries does not allow you following another person. Okay. Electronic surveillance, video camera. That's usually very, very useful. Nowadays, almost every place you have it. So first thing you do, you ask for the video camera, video recording, whenever you go for any investigation. Invigilation involves close supervision of suspects during an examination period. Strict temporary controls are implemented so that committing fraud is almost impossible. So what happened, for example, it says about inventory. This particular guy, the vendor, was to report that they were buying petrol, about 2,000 gallons per day. And the report came for the fraud. So they put a control on the process for 1 month. Invigilation is very expensive. You have to have very strict. In the control, it's so many controls you take place that normal process, normal act of theft cannot happen. So over a 1 month period, they observed this sell to this vendor. And then again, they withdrew all the controls, and then they saw how much sell is happening. They realized that the vendor was in fact buying about 30,000 gallons per month, not 2,000 gallons per month. Sorry, yeah, per month they were buying 2,000 gallons. During the control period, the delivery was 30,000 gallons. Again, when they withdrew the control, Again, it went back to 2,000 gallon. Then they knew that the people involved are committing fraud. So then they put other controls in, other observation, and they were able to find out who are the people working with the vendor to commit this fraud. So invigilation is a extremely expensive process because you need to put a lot of people and controls in place. Security and auditors should be like swarming the place. But it is done in critical cases where you have no other option. So this is one of the examples. Now, collecting physical evidence. So what are the physical evidence? Involves analyzing objects such as inventory, assets, broken locks, substances such as grease and fluids, traces such as paints and stains, impressions of the cutting marks, tire track, fingerprint, searching computers. So a lot of this activity may require specialized training. So one thing you have to remember, when you are doing investigation, it is not expected that you know everything. All you need to know your limits. Your limits so that when areas that you don't have expertise, you should be able to seek help from the other people who have expertise. Like for example, when I was working in the automotive company, if it is a technical matter, if somebody says, well, this car was not repaired properly, now how do you decide whether the repair was done properly or not? I am not the experienced guy, I'm not a technician. So I will go to the chief technician and explain, and he will explain what are the steps, what are the process, what are the examples, and they will give me a report after doing the inspection, whether it was done properly or not. That report will be part of my investigation. In case of computer forensic, I'm not a computer forensic guy, so we need to go to the computer forensic person and do the proper investigation and give you the results. You will give them the ideas, you give them the keywords and all those things, they will give you the result. And that becomes your part of your investigation. So as an investigator, we need to know our limits and we need to know when to seek help. We don't need to be the master of everything. Nobody's expecting that. We should not pretend to do that either. Now, here I will quickly discuss something about electronic gatherings, but I will tell you I am not an expert in computer forensic, and I do not, I would not suggest you to do it unless you are a specialist in computer forensic. So usually, I have done seizing computers and assets. So some of the things we have to do, I will share with you. First thing is you need to secure the device. Okay, and take pictures of the device, where it's located and everything. Now the cloning of the device is done by, there is a special equipment to do the cloning of computer. They will do a cloning of the hard disk so that nothing is damaged or compromised. Then you can go and take once the cloning is done, then you can go and do some manual search also, like in the temporary folder, in the my folder, my file, the most recent file and all those things, you can do that. And usually in those cases, you have to follow a very documented process. Again, remember the caution here, read it. The gathering of electronic evidence is a highly technical task that must be performed correctly. You may want to include a computer forensic specialist on your team. I already said that many times, but I want to read it to you also. Please be very, very careful in handling computer matters. The process that happens is secure the device and perform initial tasks. Need to have a legal right to seize the hardware. Remember, you have to be familiar with the laws and regulation of the country that you are operating. There, what is the law, what is the company policy, that's what you need to follow. I cannot tell you how to do it because each country has its own way of doing it. Exercise care with respect to chain of custody. Very, 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 very important. If you are not able to prove the chain of custody and evidence marking, your case will fall apart. Especially in America or most of the Western countries, where if they can prove the break in the chain of custody, your case is done. Take picture of the seizure site and have neutral witness on the scene. So as I told you, if the computer is laying on the table, before you seize it, take picture of the computer location and everything. Then have somebody witness that you collected it, labeled it, and secured it. And the witness needs to sign and seal the document so that nobody can touch it. So there is a chain of custody starts from there, that who did it, when they did it, and it is clearly documented. After the preliminary steps of securing the device and performing initial tasks, turn the computer off by cutting the power up to the machine. You don't turn off if the computer is on. You don't go and just turn it off normally. You just cut the power off. Okay, this is the way. Again, usually it is done under supervision of computer forensic specialist. If not, they will give you guidance how to do it. Do exactly follow that. But usually this is one of the process. Do not don't just go, and shut down the computer normally. Then the cloning of the device. I told you there are special equipment that is connected with the laptop or desktop, and it can clone the hard disk as is. And it has all the required checks to make sure that it has not been tampered with. I will not discuss because this is a too technical thing. Search the device manually. Common areas to search includes computer logs, web activities, recent files, start menu, web favorites, browser history, my document folder, trash or recycle bin, USB key, CDs, this found around the computer. I have done, like there was one case, we seized computers and hard documents of almost like 26 employees over the weekend. They didn't even know that we were going to do it. Saturday we went in, we called all the employees in and the HR and the other people in, and we basically start collecting documents. In those cases, you have to maintain a very good record of each and every document that you collected and the evidence and the witness. It's a very intensive process. Recently loaded file listed on the file, that will also give you information. You need to check that. Chat log, email, client cache. Search the device using automated process. There are many forensic tools available in organizations. One of the tools that I have seen in one of the organizations is the Encase. What it does is it is embedded into the company's ERP system, and there's an agent that is implanted in each and every device used in the organization. And when we needed to extract information, all we need to do is target the device and activate the agent. An agent will basically copy everything from the laptop and send it to us. Nobody will know that it has happened. So this forensic tool needs a lot of special training. Some of these tools are open source. You can get it for free and get trained. But again, before you do use any of these tools, you need to know that you know how to use it properly. Email system is a very good source of information, especially where the email journaling is activated. Some companies I've seen, they decided not to activate it under the guise that it takes too much space. Nowadays, space is not an issue, so it's not an excuse anymore. So email system, if you have the journaling activated, any email going in and out of your system is recorded. Many copies may exist in the sender, receiver, and email server. It may include text messaging also in certain countries. But be careful about accessing Hotmail, Gmail, and Yahoo Mail, okay? These are, you have to, again, I told you, you have to be aware of the country's privacy laws, because if you hack into this email on behalf of your company, you may be violating the law of the land, and you may get into major trouble. With that, you may bring your company into trouble. So I knew one guy who used to work with us. He was a good hacker. And we said, get us some information. The guy went to somebody's personal email and got all the information. We were like, what are you doing? So we told him not to do that anymore, okay? So you need to be very, very careful about what you request, who you request. Make sure that they don't do anything illegal. So that's all for today. Any question? Tomorrow, we will be discussing Investigating Concealment Act. We will describe concealment of investigation methods and how they relate to fraud, understand the value of documents and electronic records in a fraud investigation, list the different methods of obtaining documentary evidence, understand how to perform discovery sampling to obtain documentary evidence, and explain how to obtain hard-to-get documentary evidence. That's the end of today. Any other questions you have?
Question. One question is that if sometime we use the tool to remotely access the laptop
Yeah.
for the suspect, so do we need any or for all the specific authority to get access if we are checking the laptop?
Usually, in an organization, when they implement such tools, it has the top level of authority.
Okay, so authority is already by default.
Already there, so it's given. Okay, now if you go try to do that from somebody who is not in the company, outside the company, that is wrong. There you will be subject to, even if you work for a telecom company, okay, you have to be careful. Like for example, if you are in UAE, and a lot of these telecom companies have the ability to read your text message.
Yeah, the WhatsApp message.
If you do that, you are in violation of UAE law. You can get into jail. They can put you in jail. That's a serious violation of, only one who can do that are if there is a request from the government authorities.
Yeah, sometimes there is a request from the Ministry of Interior only.
Yeah, those are different things.
Yeah.
Ministry of Interior, those are government authorities. They have the authority to do that. But just for
so it means that
purpose,
the authority should be from the person who has the authorization.
Yeah. See, within the organization, you can do email and other thing, but text messaging, I don't think it is authorized under UAE law. Okay.
Yeah.
It is explicitly, if somebody is doing it, I can only say that it is not allowed under laws of certain countries in the Middle East.
It's an unauthorized thing, and even if we listen to the phone calls, that is also illegal.
Yeah, it's illegal act. Okay. Under the law, I know in the Middle East, most of the Middle Eastern countries. So you need to have a proper, if the Ministry of Interior requests it, that's a different issue. Those are government authorities. Okay. For corporate investigation purpose, unless you have explicit company policy that tells you the company phone, company issued SIM card, and company issued phones are subject to search. If you have explicit authority or statement of the policy in the organization, that's a different thing, because when your employee signs up for the the job, they already agreed to that. Okay. So in your investigation plan, in your investigation document, you need to have, again, I told you about going into the employee folder, get a copy of the employee contract, where it mentions that you have the authority to search his phone provided by the company or a SIM card provided by the company.
Yeah.
So this type of legal language should be included in the employment contract. And we did that in our company that we were working. We did that. We were able to. I used to do that. I used to get to the employee file, collect the employee contract document, highlight those sections, okay, and include it in my folder.
Normally, the suspect who has done so much theft, he will not go to the court, but it could happen. Sometimes there is some.
You don't know where you are going to step on the wrong foot.
Yeah.
Okay, I have known people at a very, very senior level kicked out of the country in short notice. Okay, I don't know if you know about that, but I have known people who has been subject to such thing, and I warned the guy that what you're doing was illegal, and he didn't care. Okay, so we have to be careful. At least if management asks you something to do like that, you should at least express your concern. In my opinion, I will do that.
Everything should be authorized, should be given.
Yes, everything should be by the book. Investigation is not fun. It's not, audit, you make a mistake, you can recover. Investigation, you make a mistake, it can be very, very damaging to the other person and to you also.
Fair enough.
Because our outcome, investigation outcome is always an individual. It's going to hurt somebody. If it is, somebody will lose a job, somebody will be terminated, somebody will be warned. Okay. And going through investigation is not fun. Any other question? Okay, then. That's all for today. I hope to see you tomorrow about the same time, and we'll talk about investigating concealment act. Okay. Have a good day. Assalamu alaikum.